Amicus Redivivus by Charles Lamb. Where were ye, nymphs, when the remorseless deep closed o'er the head of your loved Lycidas? I do not know when I have experienced a stranger sensation than on seeing my old friend G.D., who had been paying me a morning visit a few Sundays back at my cottage at Islington, upon taking leave, instead of turning down the right-hand path by which he had entered, with staff in hand, and at noonday deliberately march right forwards into the midst of the stream that runs by us and totally disappear. A spectacle like this at dusk would have been appalling enough, but, in the broad open daylight, to witness such an unreserved motion towards self-destruction in a valued friend took from me all power of speculation. How I found my feet I know not. Consciousness was quite gone. Some spirit, not my own, whirled me to the spot. I remember nothing but the silvery apparition of a good white head emerging, nigh which a staff, the hand unseen that wielded it, pointed upwards, as feeling for the skies. In a moment, if time was in that time, he was on my shoulders, and I, freighted with a load more precious than his who bore Anchises. And here I cannot but do justice to the officious zeal of sundry passers-by, who, albeit arriving a little too late to participate in the honors of the rescue, in philanthropic shoals came thronging to communicate their advice as to the recovery, prescribing variously the application or non-application of salt and sea to the person of the patient. Life meantime was ebbing fast away, amidst the stifle of conflicting judgments, when one, more sagacious than the rest, by a bright thought, proposed sending for the doctor. Trite as the counsel was, and impossible, as one should think, to be missed on, shall I confess? In this emergency, it was to me as if an angel had spoken. Great previous exertions, and mine had not been inconsiderable, are commonly followed by a debility of purpose. This was a moment of irresolution. Monoculus, for so, in default of catching his true name, I choose to designate the medical gentleman who now appeared, is a grave, middle-aged person, who, without having studied at the college, or truckled to the pedantry of a diploma, hath employed a great portion of his valuable time in experimental processes upon the bodies of unfortunate fellow creatures, in whom the vital spark, to mere vulgar thinking, would seem extinct and lost forever. He omitteth no occasion of obtruding his services, from a case of common surfeit suffocation to the ignobler obstructions, sometimes induced by a too wilful application of the plant cannabis outwardly. But though he declineth not altogether these drier extinctions, his occupation tendeth for the most part to water practice, for the convenience of which he hath judiciously fixed his quarters near the grand repository of the stream mentioned, where, day and night, from his little watchtower, at the Middleton's head, he listingeth to detect the wrecks of drowned mortality, partly, as he saith, to be upon the spot, and partly, because the liquids which he useth to prescribe to himself and his patients, on these distressing occasions, are ordinarily more conveniently to be found at these common hostelries, than in the shops and files of the apothecaries. His ear hath arrived to such finesse by practice, that it is reported, he can distinguish a plunge at a half-furlong distance, and can tell if it be casual or deliberate. He weareth a medal suspended over a suit originally of a sad brown, but which, by time and frequency of nightly divings, has been dinged into a true professional sable. He passeth by the name of doctor, and is remarkable for wanting his left eye. His remedy, after a sufficient application of warm blankets, friction, and sea, is a simple tumbler or more of the purest cognac with water made as hot as the convalescent can bear it. Where he findeth, as in the case of my friend, a squeamish subject, he condescendeth to be the taster, and showeth, by his own example, the innocuous nature of the prescription. Nothing can be more kind or encouraging than this procedure. It addeth confidence to the patient to see his medical adviser go hand in hand with himself in the remedy. When the doctor swalloweth his own draught, what peevish invalid can refuse to pledge him in the potion? In fine, Monoculus is a humane, sensible man, who, for a slender pittance, scarce enough to sustain life, is content to wear it out in the endeavor to save the lives of others. His pretensions so moderate, that with difficulty I could press a crown upon him, for the price of restoring the existence of such an invaluable creature to society as G.D. It was pleasant to observe the effect of the subsiding alarm upon the nerves of the dear absentee. It seemed to have given a shake to memory, calling up notice after notice of all the providential deliverances he had experienced in the course of his long and innocent life. Sitting up in my couch which, naked and void of furniture hitherto, for the salutary repose which it administered, shall be honored with costly valance at some price, and henceforth be a state bed at Colebrook, he discoursed of marvelous escapes, by carelessness of nurses, by Pails of Jellied and Kettles of the Boiling Element in Infancy, by Orchard Pranks and Snapping Twigs in Schoolboy Frolics, by Descent of Tiles at Trumpington and of Heavier Tomes at Pembroke, by Studious Watchings inducing frightful vigilance, by Want and the Fear of Want and all the sore throbbings of the learned head. Anon, he would burst out into little fragments of chaunting, of songs long ago, ends of deliverance hymns, not remembered before since childhood, but coming up now, when his heart was made tender as a child's, for the tremor chordes in the retrospect of a recent deliverance, as in a case of impending danger, acting upon an innocent heart, will produce a self-tenderness, which we should do ill to christen cowardice. And Shakespeare, in the latter crisis, has made his good Sir Hugh to remember the sitting by Babylon, and to mutter of shallow rivers. Waters of Sir Hugh Middleton, what a spark you were like to have extinguished forever. Your salubrious streams to this city, for now near 2 centuries, would hardly have atoned for what you were in a moment washing away. Mockery of a river, liquid artifice, wretched conduit, henceforth rank with canals and sluggish aqueducts. Was it for this that, smit in boyhood with the explorations of that Abyssinian traveler, I paced the vales of Amwell to explore your tributary springs, to trace your salutary waters sparkling through green Hertfordshire and cultured Enfield parks? Ye have no swans, no naiads, no river god, or did the benevolent hoary aspect of my friend tempt ye to suck him in, that ye also might have the tutelary genius of your waters? Had he been drowned in Cam, there would have been some consonancy in it, but what willows had ye to wave and rustle over his moist sepulchre? Or, having no name, besides that unmeaning assumption of eternal novity, did ye think to get one by the noble prize, and henceforth to be termed the stream Darien? And could such spacious virtue find a grave beneath the imposthumed bubble of a wave? I protest, George, you shall not venture out again, no, not by daylight, without a sufficient pair of spectacles, in your musing moods especially. Your absence of mind we have borne, till your presence of body came to be called in question by it. You shall not go wandering into Euripus with Aristotle, if we can help it. Fie, man, to turn dipper at your years, after your many tracks in favor of sprinkling only. I have nothing but water in my head on nights since this frightful accident. Sometimes I am with Clarence in his dream. At others I behold Christian beginning to sink and crying out to his good brother Hopeful, that is to me, I sink in deep waters, the billows go over my head, all the waves go over me. Selah. Then I have before me Palinurus just letting go the steerage. I cry out too late to save. Next follow a mournful procession, suicidal faces, saved against their wills from drowning, dolefully trailing a length of reluctant gratefulness, with ropey weeds pendant from locks of watchet hue-constrained Lazari, Pluto's half-subjects, stolen fees from the grave bilking Charon of his fair. At their head Arion, or is it GD, in his singing garments marcheth singly, with harp in hand, and votive garland, which Machion or Dr. Hawes snatcheth straight, intending to suspend it to the stern god of sea. Then follow dismal streams of Lethe, in which the half-drenched on earth are constrained to drown downright, by wharfs where Ophelia twice acts her muddy death. And doubtless there is some notice in that invisible world, when one of us approacheth, as my friend did so lately, to their inexorable precincts. When a soul knocks once, twice, at death's door, the sensation aroused within the palace must be considerable, and the grim feature, by modern science so often dispossessed of his prey, must have learned by this time to pity Tantalus. A pulse assuredly was felt along the line of the Elysian shades, when the near arrival of GD was announced by no equivocal indications. From their seats of asphodel arose the gentler and the graver ghost's poet, or historian, of Grecian or of Roman lore, to crown with unfading chaplets the half-finished love labors of their unwearied scholiast. Markland expected, him Tyrwhitt hoped to encounter, him the sweet lyrist of Peterhouse, whom he had barely seen upon earth one, with newest airs prepared to greet, and patron of the gentle Christ's boy, who should have been his patron through life. The mild Askew, with longing aspirations, leaned foremost from his venerable Scullapian chair, to welcome into that happy company the matured virtues of the man, whose tender scions in the boy he himself upon earth had so prophetically fed and watered. Footnote 1, Graham tantum vidit.